Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
I'd like to thank every one of you for coming out here today. I've seen so many good friends and familiar faces and some new faces that are eager to learn about mind control. My experience as a mind control slave on a White House Pentagon level was extreme. I was totally robotic. I had no capacity to think for myself. So my sexuality was heightened from a very, very early age, and I also developed what is known as dissociative identity disorder. It was formerly termed multiple personality disorder, but has since been redefined because it's not multiple personalities, but the shattering of a personality and a compartmentalization of memory, of trauma, too horrible to comprehend. Childhood sexual abuse is certainly too horrible to comprehend. There was no place for that in my mind. I know right close to here you had a major, major occurrence going on with the Marin County Daycare Center because Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino was on the daycare board. The founder of the occult temple Set that's proliferating on our military bases. Head of the Psychological Warfare Division of the Defense Intelligence Agency. One of my primary mind control programmers, and someone who doesn't religiously believe in what he's doing, but certainly understands that trauma, like sexual abuse of children, which he's, with the Presidio daycare scandal, certainly named him in, and occult trauma are certainly too horrible to comprehend. There's no place for it in a child's brain, in anyone's mind for that matter.
I've always been driven by curiosity. That is really what got me into all the things that I've gotten into. I don't have any, what you call demons. I don't have any hatreds. I don't have any agendas or things that I have to push or sell on anybody. I just like to find things out. And that's always sort of been where I've been coming from.
The Investigative News Group presents the Geraldo Rivera Special. Devil Worship. Exposing Satan's underground.
In our investigation, we discovered that some of Satan's soldiers are also high-ranking officers in the United States military. Here at San Francisco's Presidio Army Base, for example, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino led a double life as a satanic high priest. Here, charges surface connecting ritual child abuse at the Presidio Daycare Center to the devil cult. It was here, parents and others allege, that as many as 60 young children were ritualistically abused by soldiers of Satan. Colonel Aquino, we note, sir, for the record, that you were originally implicated in the dreadful charges of child abuse. We note also that no charges were ever brought against you. Would you like to comment on why those charges were brought against you?
It was the year 1968, and the movie Rosemary's Baby was opening in San Francisco. And I decided, since I was taking a few days leave before going east, I would go down and catch the early show.
What have you done to it? What have you done to its eyes?
He has his father's eyes.
And as I was leaving the theater, A black hearse pulled up in front, and out of the hearse piled a number of formidable-looking ladies and gentlemen, all dressed in black, the central figure of which was a very imposing goateed man. And after I watched this procession go by, I went over to the theater manager and said, "What in the world was that?" And he said, "Oh, that was Anton LaVey and some members from the Church of Satan." And he was involved with helping to make the movie. I said, "No kidding, a Church of Satan right here in San Francisco. Cool." I decided I would go check them out. So I saw that the Church of Satan was giving lectures to the members of the public. So I went and listened to a couple of lectures by Anton.
Well, I had a man come to me the other day, and he said that it was just terrible. When he joined the Satanic Church, he was masturbating just about every day. And now he's masturbating 2 and sometimes 3 times a day. He's very happy, much happier than he's ever been before. That's last week, too, on top of that.
He struck me as very pleasant. He had a good sense of humor. And in a nutshell, I decided that I would try out membership in the Church of Satan, which then impressed me enough that I decided to become a member of the priesthood, and then it went on from there. The Church of Satan took on the institutions of Judeo-Christianity and other mainstream religions, and it said, these things are mostly excuses for control of people. They are means of exploitation. They are not really ways of getting at the truth of things, and they certainly have nothing to do with authentic metaphysics.
All religions are based on abstinence rather than indulgence, and all religions, therefore, have to be based on fear. Well, we don't feel that fear is necessary to base a religion on.
What the Church of Satan was all about had nothing to do with the glorification or worship of evil. It had everything to do with the question of separateness of the individual consciousness, or in this case Satan, from the universe around it. Therefore, your consciousness, your soul, is something outside of nature, and that is what you might call the original sin of Satan or any characters in history that have symbolized the human psyche. So the adventure of the Church of Satan was to explore what it is to be a human being and to take responsibility for yourself. This was a time of social criticism in the United States. Our boomer generation felt that ordinary society was rather hypocritical. The Church of Satan took a strong stand against hypocrisy.
This is a very selfish religion. We believe in greed, we believe in selfishness, we believe in all of the lustful thoughts that motivate man, because this is man's natural feeling. A person has to be good to themselves before they can be good to other people. So we feel the greatest sin of all is self-deceit.
As soon as I was in the Army, they sent me to PSYOP and Special Forces schools, and then sent me in 1969 over to Southeast Asia, where I was for the next year. When I went to Vietnam, I was assigned to the 4th Psychological Operations Group, which handled all of that area of Southeast Asia. Psychological operations, or PSYOP, was propaganda, the kind that's delivered on the battlefield, such as leaflets and loudspeaker messages to get the other army demoralized and suggest that it should surrender. It's also used against neutral audiences, such as host country civilian areas, to get the people to cooperate with you rather than to become combative with you. I was either in a helicopter or on foot or in a truck driving myself around the country in and out of villages which might or might not have been Viet Cong controlled. That was the way to get to talk to people and to figure out where I could do some good. When we were talking to civilians, we just emphasized themes like civil construction and land reallocation and the building of schools and medical care and inoculations and hospitals and all those kinds of positive things. And when we were talking to enemy soldiers, the themes were more along the line of, you really are fighting a much superior force here. The odds of your going home are very small. You're up against a lot of military machinery. The more it can find you, it's pretty much going to destroy you. And it also had to do with that prospect of death that had to do with elements of Buddhism. For example, Wandering Soul is one of a number of interesting propaganda tapes that we worked up. There's a very strong fear of being left unburied among the Vietnamese. We decided to devise a tape that professed to be the soul of a killed enemy soldier who was now doomed to wander eternally through the Buddhist afterworld. He was crying out and shrieking and generally very unhappy with his situation. And we'd take it up in a helicopter, fly over enemy areas, and then just broadcast this thing over these loudspeakers down from a height that was so high up that you couldn't hear the rotor blades, but you could hear this voice coming out of It didn't physically hurt anybody, but it did scare people. We indeed had quite a few people surrender and come over to our side saying they didn't pay any attention to the stupid American propaganda, but they'd heard one of their fellows talking to them from the afterworld, and that freaked them out. A year in Southeast Asia showed me just how dire and how desperate people outside in the United States can be. I came home much more sobered, and of seeing this up close and of seeing a lot of people killed right in front of me and participating in firefights, I really developed a hatred of this whole concept of violent war and resolved that if at some point I could do something about it, I would take that opportunity. We had a great time for the first 10 years of the Church of Satan. I was basically the next highest initiate to Anton himself. At that time, I was editing the church's newsletter, The Cloven Hoof. Each month, Anton would send me his own article for it. In May, he sent me an article that, of all things, said that the initiatory degrees of the Church of Satan were going to henceforth be available for cash donations as basically a thank you for people who made contributions to the church, meaning him. And I went back to him and I said, I think I misunderstood you here. You can't say that you could just buy the priesthood. And he said, well, that's exactly what I do want. And I said, you can't do this. It would turn the whole Church of Satan into a mockery. It make the whole thing insincere. And he said, I don't care. That's what I want. Do it. I said, under these circumstances, I can't remain a member. I feel that you've just corrupted the entire concept. At that point, I and basically the entire rest of the national priesthood resigned from the church and a short time later founded what became the Temple of Set.
The Temple of Set follows the ancient Egyptian Prince of Darkness, Satan in another guise. It's America's only legal satanic church and enjoys tax-free status. Lilith Sinclair and Temple Director Michael Aquino edit the Satanic Newsletter. It has a circulation of 75.
The name change came about because we began to bump our noses up against the limitations of Judeo-Christian symbolism and iconography. Their idea of a Satan was there as a scarecrow. We went all the way back to ancient Egypt, where they didn't have these kinds of issues and problems. And we looked at the ancient Egyptian principle. People would sometimes call these gods, but we would prefer to call them principles or forms, or in the Egyptian hieroglyphic term, neteru. We looked at the one that represented the independent human consciousness, the juxtaposition of human self-awareness from that of the rest of the natural universe, and that was the Neter Set. And that's how the Temple of Set came to be what it is. The motivation for becoming a Setian is to say, who and what am I, and what should I be doing with myself? One of the differences between the Church of Satan and the Temple of Set was that the Church of Satan did not go into this second question all that deeply and was actually rather hedonistic. While this was all very enjoyable, should you be looking at something better and higher of yourself? How can we enter any situation and make it better instead of reacting like angry animals or greedy animals or lusty animals? How can we raise the standards of our conduct to what a true divinity would be? Underlying almost everything we do is a much greater commitment to this quest for the perfection of your personal soul. And that's what brings people to become Setians.
It really makes no difference whether you pray to a father god, or to a mother goddess, or to an entire gaggle of gods and goddesses. You're still wishing the same thing. You're still wishing to be included. You're still wishing for their acceptance. You're waiting for them to put their arm or arms around you and say, you belong. The Satanist, the black magician, we do not seek to have our decisions and our morality approved or validated by any higher god or being. We take responsibility unto ourselves. On this altar is one of a number of daggers, which we may use in our rituals. This one happened to belong to the commanding general of the most elite unit of Germany's infamous SS, which was concerned with black magic and occultism research in general. I have been to the Wewelsburg, which still preserves Heinrich Himmler's ritual chambers to this day, and have conducted a black magical ritual in the so-called Hall of the Dead beneath the Wewelsburg. This particular dagger is inscribed to our comrade in the Leibstandarte Theodor Wisch, Brigadeführer, a major general in the Waffen-SS. And on its blade, it bears the inscription, Mein Ehre heißt Treu, or my honor shall be known by my faithfulness.
Now, if a Christian said to you, you were just really worshipping yourself, what would you say?
In a sense, they would be right. It is a form of self-worship. The only thing that keeps it from being totally that is that there is this sentient being, which is the Prince of Darkness, or Set, or Satan on a more primitive level. But it is a relationship of mutual respect rather than worship in the popular sense of the word. Yes, we regard ourselves very highly because we feel we are superior beings in a sense that we're not just little robots going around punching our time clocks, getting up, going to sleep, and that's our existence. There's much more to it than that, and we feel that we are gaining the knowledge of that deeper universe.
In many ways, the work that I did in areas like psychological operations had to do with this same kind of an attitude. Later on, when I was assigned as a research and development officer to the 7th PSYOP group in San Francisco, I was asked by its commander, Colonel Paul Vallely, to do a post-mortem on the PSYOP effort in Vietnam, because the war was generally a failure over there for us. The result was to come up with the realization of why U.S. PSYOP had not worked. You think that you are in control of your conscious decisions. You take in information and then you go do things with it. This is what's called algorithmic thinking. That kind of thinking accounts for only about 5% of our mental activity, and the other 95% is at the subconscious level. This is generally called pattern thinking. You are under the illusion with that remaining 5% of your consciousness that you're making purely discretionary decisions when you're not. You're gathering information all the time by your 5 senses, and that information goes into the construction of patterns of reality. You're basically enslaved through the unconscious sensory inputs to your brain. Are we simply pissing up wind then if all we do is construct arguments to that 5%? That efforts to make us behave decently just have no chance because there's so much under the surface. We should be spending some time looking at that 95%. Mind War addresses the entire architecture of human consciousness that is caused by external influences and how we can correct those and address them. We actually have a lot of technologies that we can use to influence all of those factors that come in and generate these reality patterns. These are psychons, meaning psychological control mechanisms. This sounds very spooky and science fiction-y, but it's actually very straightforward. If you understand that these are the mechanisms that dictate your unconscious thoughts and how they come together, and these are the way that you can adjust those and control them and make sure that you aren't simply being blindsided by them, then an intelligent approach to getting your mind at its most enlightened has to do with applying all these psychons not just to an enemy but to yourself, so that we all together become more reasonable, more proactive, more positive, and able to solve problems cooperatively rather than just simply beating each other's brains out. Mind war can be dangerous. It messes with people's ideas of reality. If you get that in the hands of the wrong people, you wind up with an Orwellian 1984 or an Adolf Hitler. So we're taking a chance here. But the alternative is that the planet blows itself up and kills lots and lots of other people.
Holy fuck! Oh my God! Oh my God!
Since 9/11, we're in a state of permanent war that has no defined enemy.
The United States military has begun strikes against al-Qaeda terrorist training camps, undermine Saddam Hussein's ability to wage war.
Degrade and ultimately destroy the terrorist group known as ISIL.
No way to know when it's going to end. And it wasn't really declared in the first place. And now it's just sort of taken for granted. And nobody knows how to stop it. Nobody's even trying. I figured I had to start somewhere. Mind war is just a way to deal with national stresses and strains and problems without shooting somebody.
Dr. Aquino, the high priest of the Church of Set.
Temple of Set.
Temple of Set, also a colonel. Do you feel it is inconsistent with a high-ranking officer sworn to uphold the Constitution of the United States that you are also a practicing Satanist?
Not in the least. The Army has known of my religion for the last 20 years.
This is Dr. Walter Grote, would you stand, sir? Whose daughter was allegedly abused at West Point, the United States Military Academy. You were a captain in the United States Army. What is your feeling, sir, on the fact that a serving officer in the United States Army is also a professed Satanist?
Mr. Aquino has identified himself as an antichrist. He preaches that as the leader of the Temple Set. I don't think I'm misquoting him. I find it inconceivable that we can have somebody in our Army leading our troops in battle who are opposed to the very concept of God and whose whole purpose it is to fight against God.
We have to take a break right here. Next, more on the connection between Satanism and violence, including more charges of the sexual abuse of children. If you have let your kids watch up until now, we urge you, ladies and gentlemen, we are not kidding. Get them away from the TV during our next report. We'll be right back.
The interesting thing is I never received a single shred of negative accusation or publicity or anything until the period of time when the country was going through a kind of a hysterical mania about imaginary satanic ritual abuse that was supposedly convulsing daycare centers all through the country. This country goes through various scares when it has witch hunts. In the early 80s, when communism was beginning to fail as a bugbear, suddenly it became Satanists and occultists. And of course, the way to scare people the most is they're after the kids.
A bizarre story unfolded in a Los Angeles court today, a story involving sexual abuse of children in daycare centers. A case that prosecutors say could have national implications.
Prosecutors allege 7 teachers molested, photographed, drugged, and threatened the children.
Placement of sharp foreign objects into vaginal areas, bombing the family home.
Puppy is beheaded in front of him, or a rabbit, and someone sticks a knife in that rabbit. That's a very convincing thing.
It's the latest in what seems to be an epidemic of child abuse in this country.
There's a substructure of people who are child molesters, and people who do not come from that subculture would not be hired at that school.
She uses anatomically correct dolls and puppets to try to coax the truth from preschoolers.
Mr. Parrott, can you help Susie show us what happened to her?
No day goes by without more reports of sexual abuse of children.
Police say dozens of children are involved in 7 child molesting cases revealed here this month.
The state says child abuse is not increasing here, but public attention given the crime is.
Law enforcement authorities suspect they may have stumbled on an international child abuse ring. 2 well-dressed men were discovered with 6 filthy, ragged, insect-bitten children.
The organization is probably some type of satanic cult, and a prerequisite of joining this group is to give up the rights to your children.
A source alleged that the group was conducting brainwashing techniques and that the children were used in rituals. Authorities still lack precise answers to very fundamental questions. Who are these children? Where were they being taken, and why? And perhaps most worrisome of all, are there others out there like them? Candy Crowley, NBC News, Washington.
This all started with a book called Michelle Remembers, published in 1980, in which some Canadian psychiatrist said that his wife, under hypnosis, had recalled being mangled by the Church of Satan when she was a kid. Well, we never had any Church of Satan in Canada. It was later revealed to be a complete fraud, but it put the idea into people's heads. It was exciting, and it was thrilling. It was kind of like a Hollywood monster movie. And also, it gave people an opportunity to get headlines, make themselves important, and maybe make a lot of money. So suddenly there were people howling about just satanic daycare centers and schools.
The satanic movement in the world has set up preschools throughout the world for the purpose of getting their hands on our children.
It makes no difference what you believe about Satanists.
They're doctors, they're lawyers, they're teachers.
It makes no difference what you believe about their agenda.
They're oftentimes people who are in positions of great influence over small children.
What's important for you to know is that they believe it, and they have a very specific agenda, that is to seduce your children into Satanism.
There were scores and scores of these things around the country during the decade. I never paid a whole lot of attention to this originally because I thought it was just a crazy fad that would wear itself out. But as it turned out, there was a lot of these scare things going on in the military too.
In many of these preschools, the children are exposed to sex from the time of birth.
And we had to watch as they skinned his legs.
Anything to destroy a child's innocence or their trust or their wonder at the world, they will do it.
Eating the eyes means that you're high up in the hierarchy of Satanism and you pluck the eyes out of a human and eat them.
The higher officials in these public organizations do not want to acknowledge that this is occurring.
A mother will be asked to sacrifice her own child to Satan, and she may even, in fact, be ritually impregnated.
And I have a page missing, and I'll have to dig that one up some. I don't know what happened to that page. Maybe the Satanist got it.
There had been about 20 or 30 accusations about military schools and daycare centers on Army bases. And in 1986, a number of parents on the Presidio decided to attack a daycare teacher there named Gary Hambright. despite the fact that he was always surrounded by lots of other teachers at the daycare center. Suddenly, everybody was making accusations about him.
In San Francisco tonight, authorities say there may be as many as 37, quote, suspected victims in their investigation of possible sexual abuse at the Presidio Army base. The incidents, which began more than a year ago, resulted in 4 children being treated for a sexually transmitted disease and 1 child possibly being infected with the AIDS virus. The U.S. Army says no one currently working at the daycare center is under suspicion. With the Presidio case, almost 10% of Army daycare centers worldwide now have come under investigation for child sexual abuse.
What actually was done to the kids?
Oral copulation, sodomy, defecation. They were urinated on.
In my case, a Presidio Christian chaplain by the name of Adams Thompson waited a year and then decided with his wife that they were going to make an accusation against me and my wife, since I'd been assigned to the Presidio up to 1986. In 1987, I was actually reassigned to Washington, D.C., where I was a full-time resident student at the National Defense University. So I wasn't even there at the Presidio when all of this was going on, but that made no difference. The first that I learned about the chaplain scam was at the end of my year at the Industrial College, when my wife Lois and I came home here to San Francisco. One evening when we were hanging around the house watching TV, there was a knock at the door, and in came the San Francisco police and the FBI with a search warrant. And for the next several hours, they were turning the whole house upside down, looking for evidence of child abuse. And we were standing there with our mouths open saying, what in the world is this? The chaplain's accusations of kidnapping his daughter for terrible satanic sexual abuse was investigated by the FBI, the San Francisco Police Department. They quickly realized by checking my attendance records in Washington, D.C., that this was a physical impossibility, because I was always recorded being present in class at the same time as the Adams Thompson kid was at the daycare center. The child in question was examined by the Presidio Hospital and found to be a virgin with no signs whatever of any molestation. The records of the kid's psychiatrist who'd been proclaiming this turned out to be just nothing but coaching from the psychiatrist and so on. So the whole thing fizzled out, and the chaplain who had immediately put in a claim against the government for $3 million didn't get it. So his scam came to nothing and it was exposed. I'd been refusing all sorts of interviews up until that time because the Temple of Set was a very privacy-oriented organization. And because nothing was known about us, or nothing was known about me, except that I was A, a black magician, and a Satanist, and B, a psychological operations officer, suddenly I was an unknown quantity, and I was scary. And then, of course, everybody was running around yelling and trying to find out about me. So I had to spend a lot of time in the media explaining myself, explaining the Temple of Set.
Would you like to comment on why those charges were brought against you?
Well, the entire time that the so-called child molestation scandal was occurring at the Presidio, the time period when these terrible events were supposedly taking place, I was assigned to the National Defense University in Washington, D.C., and my wife was out there living with me.
But is it not a fact that a 3.5-year-old girl identified you as the alleged perpetrator of molestation?
No, as a matter of fact, it is not the case. An accusation was made by her stepfather, who was an Army chaplain, speaking on behalf of this child. In her original interview with the FBI, she denied ever being molested.
I have seen, however, the affidavits for the search warrant of your home, and they indicate the child is speaking to the authorities, not her father.
This was after she had been subjected to therapy. After the investigation was over, I went right back to the rest of my active career. In 1990, my next assignment was 4 years at the U.S. Space Command in Colorado Springs, where I held an above top secret clearance, which you definitely do not get if the government thinks that you are a pedophile.
Hi, this is Trevor Coppola for Anthony J. Hilder and for Alex Jones and whoever else will be listening. I have Doug Millar.
Hi, Trevor. Appreciate you having a chance to learn some new things that you've probably never heard about before.
We're happy to have you here. What would you like to talk about today?
Look at this. I'd like to ask everybody, show them this photograph, male or female?
My name had been thrown all over the country, and the people who seemed to have fun with the idea of pedophile conspiracies just kept throwing the mud at me after that. And that's just what happens in the age of the internet.
But he's the expert that does MK Ultra torture and mind control.
And here's the one thing that will always stick to you, Mr. Aquino. Mikey, as you used to make kids call you. So many children all fingering you as being present at one or more of their molestation / rape / torture / beating sessions.
It was my experience with Michael Aquino that he does not believe in the power of Satan. What he does believe in is the power of trauma on the human mind and the compartmentalization of memory through high-voltage stun guns.
This stuff is nonsense and should be fairly obvious to anybody who knows me. My actual record is a matter of public record. I'm obviously not a criminal person, or I would have law enforcement people crawling all over me all the time.
Hey, it's June 14th. This is Dave Schroeder. Aquino, I just don't know what to say to you anymore. You have your little Satanist group focused on me, the little millennials who weren't there when I was a kid. You and I both know that the rituals that were performed and the allegiances you made and the things that you did, these little millennials weren't there. They don't have any faith in anything other than themselves. And you've convinced a lot of people that God doesn't exist. Okay, I guess. See how well that fares for you in the end. God exists. And what we have been promised in the past is happening. And that's the way it's going to be. And there ain't a fucking thing you can do about it. You can convince the whole world that it's not happening, but it isn't going to stop it. So that's my video for the day.
My actual personality and what I do and don't do is pretty much an open book. And I've tried to write down as much as I can, in as coherent a fashion I can, about everything that I've learned over the years. I'm 70 years old, not in good health, just survived a couple of major bouts with cancer. I don't expect to be around much longer. People will just have to interview me by seance. At the end of the day, every day, you have to look at yourself in the mirror and decide whether you're proud of who you are and what you've done. And if you can say that you are proud of who you are and what you've done, then that's really all that you can expect from yourself. You can't make over the entire universe by yourself. But if you're walking down the beach and you see a starfish on the beach that's going to die if he's left there, and you pick him up and you put him back in the surf, maybe you haven't changed the whole world, but you've made a difference to that starfish. So if you go through life keeping the starfish in mind, I think you're going to do okay.